and this is Rosalind Muller, my co-author. And before we get into any great depth into this book, which I'm very happy to say turned out to be extremely successful, we've been told more than 100,000 people have read it. I give total credit for the production of this book and the writing of it, though both of us wrote half, I'd say about half a piece, about 50% of the work was written by me and by Roz, the other half. And the beauty of this book, in our opinion, is that each chapter is listed by an asterisk. In other words, you know who wrote what part of the book by the asterisk. The asterisk sections of it were written by Roz. Those without asterisks were written by me. But I would be remiss if I didn't, before I begin, to tell you a little about the book, is to give full credit, and I don't do this in a sense of modesty, it's the truth, that writing a book, because we're both writers by profession before we get into professional sports, but more importantly than the writing is the putting together of a book. And those of you in this vast audience who've been exposed to how that's done, you know that that's the toughest part. Dealing with the artist, dealing with the publisher, selecting the type of print, the kind of paper, you know, who's going to have how many pages, what the book is going to cost in the bookstores. All this is an awful lot of work. The writing, because that's what we've done as part of our living, came easy. Now, what I want to tell you is that we start this book, we open the book by saying we are all part of who, what, where, when, and how. The 5 principles of journalism. So if you think about those 5 words, who, what, where, when, and how, actually that tells the story of all of us. Maybe in different ways, but basically it tells you who and what and where and when and how we were. So what I would like to say, to start at the beginning of this book, we decided, Roz has been after me for 5 years to write this book. But you know, though we're very close friends and my dearest friend, I have always resisted writing a book because it requires an awful lot of dedication. The book took us about a year to write. When I traveled in Rome, she went her way, I went my way. I would send her chapters that I would write, she would edit it, and etc. Anyway, the book was finally finished, put together by her, I call it genius, and I don't think I'm over-exaggerating in using that word, and the ability of being able to bring all these thoughts together in a cohesive way so that it runs into an interesting story which people would want to read. Let me tell you a little about the book. It took us a year to write. We've been told, as I said earlier, over 100,000 people have read it. We were fortunate in last summer, Laura Bush, we're told, picked the book for her annual book fair at the White House, and of course that gave it a stimulus and an upsurge which helped the readership of it. But I think, speaking for myself, and I'll let Roz give you her thoughts about some of these things, but before I conclude my part of this input, I have to tell you that the proudest thing I feel about this book is that it's a book that people who's, like a friend of ours who's the Chief Executive Officer of the Lay Clinic, he read it, loved it, wrote to Roz and told how much he enjoyed it. The guy who pumps gas at the station, he enjoys it, he reads it, and we have just, but I must say to you in all candor, I was not surprised when I read the manuscript when I came back from Rome, Italy, and saw the beautiful work that Roz put together. You know, I'm just a newspaper guy, and Roz is a writer. There's a difference, at least in my opinion, and I think the difference is this. It's like, to bring it down to a perspective where all of us can understand, I'm like the guy who's a short how to cook. Roz is the chef who makes, you know, the sauces and gives the meal its taste, and it makes it, you know, a superb meal. So that's why when people ask me, we agreed that when we wrote the book, that she would put it together and I would do all the promoting of the book. We've been on book tours, book signing. I've been on television shows for an hour, radio shows for a half hour, all over the country. But of course that's nothing new to us because Roz kept me kept my nose pretty close to the grindstone when we got into professional sports. Now later on, I will get into some of the things we did, what we're saying in the book, but I'd like Roz now to give you a few of her thoughts before I continue. So Roz, why don't you go ahead and enunciate things that were of interest to you?